Welcome back to the Joseph Corey Kreisen podcast. Man, welcome back for another one. It's a pleasure. It is a pleasure, an honor, and a privilege to have my voice heard by you lovely people. I don't know who's listening, but thank you so much. I pretty much only hop on here when I have something to get off my chest. And boy, my chest is heavy. I got a lot to get off my chest. Whether it's between politics, the economy, and women. I'm sorry, women. I don't mean like, hey, I love women. Hey, I love everybody. You know what I'm saying? It's like if I was in a relationship and my girl asked me if I love her, I was like, baby, I love everybody. You know what I'm saying? Like, what you mean? You ain't special? Like, nah, like, that's how I feel. I'm very nonchalant and open, but man, I have a lot of things to say that I've been noticing. I've been living in Los Angeles for the past 3 years, and let's be honest, we've been dealing with this current administration, the Trump administration, for quite a while. I mean, it's been a couple years, and as I'm judging the politics and the geopolitical conflicts that we're experiencing overseas, and we're seeing these policies that these policymakers, the lawmakers, are putting forth. We can really see, I mean, like, it's not anybody with a head can clearly see that they're taking advantage of the situation, that no one is being fiscally responsible, even down to the individual level. Oh, excuse me, I just turned my phone on. Even down to the individual level, we're seeing um credit percentages are maxed out. People are broke. I mean, like, if we look at the statistics, people are broke. And you know what's interesting is that these people, when I say these people, I say the people who take advantage of the situation of poor people. They are pushing narratives that are unhealthy for a future economy. For example, I'm seeing Democrats talk about we need to tax the rich. Don't get me started on a tangent like that. I mean, like, the rich need to pay their fair share. For example, what is the fair share, right? For the rich. It's just, don't be ignorant. And because the people, they pride on ignorance. It's the most beautiful thing in the world because ignorance is bliss. But what is the fair share of the rich? Did you know that the top 1% are paying over 40% right now in taxes, and everyone else below that poverty line of 15% is paying 3% in taxes? So what is the fair share? They always leave that undefined. So that's just an example. We're starting to see some more corruption. We're starting to see more deals. We're starting to see, just people taking advantage of this situation. And there's this, I just learned that they call America in the Middle East the Great Satan, or the something Satan. But yeah, they don't like America. They don't like America. We've had for the past 8 decades the world's reserve currency, and we have squandered it. Oh my goodness. But as you, as an American citizen, as an individual, how is that fared for you? Right? We see the baby boomer generation, they're about to retire. We see all these things happening all at once. It just seems like it's the end of the world, right? The stock market is overvalued. Speaking of the stock market, S&P 500 just made an all-time high. Yes, ain't that amazing? An all-time high. It's quite remarkable. Yeah, who has it making all-time highs in this climate? That's quite ridiculous. Let's look at a couple of stocks here. My favorite. I only mention my 7 favorite stocks. That's TPL, SILJ, UEC, which have taken major hits lately. I've been putting a lot of money in SILJ and UEC, just because I believe silver and energy stocks are going to do fine, very well. And crude oil is still holding at $97.50 right now. I mean, still hovering at that $100 level. So regardless of all these narratives of peace talks in the Middle East, we still see prices elevated. Isn't that beautiful? Yep. And the one thing that's going to replace all of this is uranium. I don't mess around with uranium. I got URNM. That's my favorite uranium energy stock. XLE, a State Street Energy Select stock. And that's pretty much it. That's pretty much all I put my money into. I don't invest too much in the stock market, but if I'm going to invest in the stock market, it's only going to be 7 stocks, and I pay attention to those stocks, right? I've chosen very diligently. I've done my research, and these are my go-tos. So I digress. I really want to point out at the beginning of the podcast the things, where we see ourselves, because it's really important that we understand where we are. I mean, we've gotten to this point based off our decisions, and at every point in time in a man's life, he has to self-reflect and see where he is, right? Where he's gone based off his decisions, and where he's going, right? The path that he is taking. And as I see myself in this fiscally irresponsible country, It makes me want to take control of my fiscal responsibility all the more, if that makes sense, But I digress. I just want to welcome everybody back to the podcast. Today, we're stripping away the noise, right? That's the whole purpose of this podcast. We don't want to talk about the social scripts, not even about dating apps or financial anxiety, even though I bring it up in the beginning of this podcast, or the exhausting performance of modern life, the complexities of life, the anxieties of life. We all have to deal with it. And I mean, honestly, life is hard. Let's be real, right? Life is hard for everybody. And I'm not going to take away, I'm not going to take away anybody's, excuses that they put forth because they are excuses. But, let's just sum it all up. Everybody's life, everybody's dealing with something. The richest man in the world, the millionaire in the world, he got a million problems. And he's thinking about them every day, right? So everybody got problems, right? But what's amazing thing about sovereignty, right? And that's what we strive for on this podcast. That's the reason why I'm even speaking to you, because I'm trying to achieve this myself. If the whole reason I'm even talking right now and recording this right now is because I play this back for myself, I'm trying to reclaim my mind. I want to reclaim my money, and I'm ultimately want to reclaim my focus, right? That man, for me to even speak up, it's I see there's a problem with myself, right? There's a problem. There's something inherently in me that I find wrong, and I feel like other young men. I mean, I'm 29 years old, living in Los Angeles, California, single, living alone. I find like other men are dealing with this as well, right? So, I mean, if you've been feeling isolated or stuck in a financial rut or just exhausted by superficial connections, right? Meaning like everything just feels artificial. Every relationship is transactional. Then this episode is your blueprint. It's a transition from being under construction to being completely self-fulfilled, right? We want to feel confident in all that we do. We want God to bless the work of our hands, right? But what's interesting about God blessing the work of our hands is, as human beings, we tend to seek out what would destroy us, right? We tend to seek out self-destruction. Um, and I'm always going to speak in the perspective of a young man. I don't know who would be listening to my podcast, I don't know if we have any elders or anything like that, but they may look at this as naive, right? But as a young man, I covet. Let's be real. I see other young men in this world, right? I see men with greater resources. They have more options, especially when it comes to women. I covet that, And how could you not connect money with women? Like, it's almost naive. We have to address the things that we constantly think about. I truly do believe that half the reason men wake up in the morning in the world is to, one, either provide for women, or two, seek to provide for women. It's like, I really do believe that's like half the battle for these. But I find that the more I focus on myself, the easier it is to overcome. But the more I focus on things that have nothing to do with me, they're just irrelevant. They hinder me and they beset me, and I don't want to feel hindered or beset, right? So there's an illusion of connection in the game of plausible deniability. Ultimately, human beings, we live a life, and of course, welcome to the world. All of us, at some point in time in our lives, are either misunderstood or we feel unloved. And that is just the reality of being a human being, right, on this earth, right? That is just, in the end of the day, we're kind of just lonely people. You go to bed alone. You go to bed thinking about yourself. I mean, unless you are fortunate to have a family that you sacrifice everything for, ultimately, we go to bed thinking about our bank accounts or whatever is the focal point of our minds, whatever is the forefront issue, right, of the day. That is what we think about. But we want to reclaim that. We don't want to think of negative things. I put this quote at the end of the podcast, but it seems very profound at this current moment. Marcus Aurelius said, "The primary cause of unhappiness is never the situation, but your thoughts about it." Right? Truly, we are never as low as we think. Right? And I don't want to. If truly my perception dictates my reality, then I'm going to start thinking lightly about my reality. Right? I want to change my perception of the issue. If it's that simple. So really, the issue, it always points back to ourselves. So there is a deep gap between our complex internal worlds and what we externally express. Unfortunately, we express something entirely different. We live in a performance society where people project curated, superficial versions of themselves. I mean, look at social media. Look at social media. You know, man, I mentioned this on my last podcast. I deleted every single social media. I don't. I'm not on any dating apps. I'm not on Instagram, TikTok. I can't believe I even had a TikTok. It was for business purposes, but yeah, none of that. I don't have a Facebook. I deleted LinkedIn and I restarted a LinkedIn just so I could use it for, job hunting. But man, I've turned my complete career, my complete I've reshaped my image to one of a professional man. I want to be taken seriously and I want to improve my quality of life. And you know what? Also, I have to mention this too in regards to women because the title of this podcast is the Independent Bachelor Owing Women. But I got tired of the quality in women that I was attracting. The type of women that I was attracting, I mean, how can I put this lightly without offending someone? I was attracting, I don't even need to put a name. I don't even put a label to these women. I was okay. Ultimately, you cannot attract what you are not, right? I was attracting what I am, and I didn't like that at all. I was attracting unfaithful, unloyal, um, just quick. Who wants that? No, I don't like it, and then you would just feel robbed of a real intimate experience, especially in a city such as this. And I get tired of it. I get tired of it. It's tasteless. I die. It's grotesque. I just, you start to crave more in life, you know? So I digress. Yeah, we wonder why we feel lonely, right? It's amazing as young men. We look for love, but we run into this catch-22 where we carry protective walls, right? Um, I don't know where these come from. For me personally, it's from like a past heartbreak, to be honest with you. I've pretty much created it. I've curated this vision of women on all women, and it's not healthy. It's something personally I have to overcome, but it's giving me strength at the same time. Um, I feel like we all, at some point in time, as young men in our prime, we've experienced some type of heartbreak. But I'm grateful to the girl who's giving me my heartbreak. I remained in the city, though I came out here for her, and man, it has been a grind. I'm so grateful that what happened between us because it made me into a more mature, responsible man. I've never in my entire life cared more about improving my situation than I do right now. Wow. I don't even want to date because I want to be in a better position to date. You know what I'm saying? But before, I just wanted sex. Let's be real. I mean, like it's amazing. Like when you judge yourself objectively, you kind of have to ask yourself, what is it you're after? What is it that you seek? And when you do that, you tend to see yourself going for things that like maybe we lie to ourselves. Maybe we say we want marriage, but maybe we just want the perks of marriage. For example, Uh, yeah, like it's like you can keep all that other stuff, because it's just drama. But we got to be honest with ourselves. When I went through that heartbreak, I put up a protective wall, right? And I was pretty much trying to hide my authentic self from being hurt again. But then I would start wondering why I feel unloved, right? But the only way for me to come out of that is to feel exposed, right? To get out of this paradox of choice, treating people as disposable rather than building real depth over time. Right? I have to kind of like sacrifice myself. I have to be vulnerable, essentially. And what allows me to grow is failure. Like, I'm so grateful that things happen. Actually, failure is not what defined me, but it's actually something that gave me a stepping stone to success. Isn't it beautiful? And that is a dynamic that has transgressed over every area of my life. And I'm so grateful for that. So have you ever found yourself caught in this loop? Um, I don't want to just jump straight to women, but there's an economic transaction to the women if you thinking about women a lot, especially, I mean, let me just speak in my situation. Maybe you'll find yourself in this situation. I'll just speak on my situation. Maybe you'll find yourself in this current climate. But have you ever found yourself caught in a loop of long glances, or like maybe subtle flirting, or maybe like mixed signals, right, with someone who is already spoken for? Meaning that they're taken, right? Whether they're you can clearly tell that their mind is somewhere else, or maybe they're even married, right? Maybe they're older or just unavailable, right? Yes, if I'm even speaking more direct, there's been married women who have emotionally cheated on their husbands with me, right? And it's like what's the term? It's a it's a risk asymmetry. I just heard this term earlier. It's like a risk asymmetry. Meaning like in comparison to each other, there's a risk exchange, but really you bear all the risk. As a single young independent bachelor of which who I'm speaking to right now on this podcast, right? They're playing a game where they can't lose. Women play this game where you cannot win, right? They get a hit of dopamine and an ego supply, which is like recharging their emotional battery, right? But it's based on your time. And you carry all the risk. If you make a move, you pretty much you look sillier. They make it they always keep it to where it's plausible deniability. And you get tired of it. I eventually come to the point where I found that cruel. Plus I began to ignore women. And then you know what's funny about ignoring women and you focusing on yourself? They go out of their way to try and distract you all the more. It's annoying. Sometimes it's attractive. Oh, like you really want my attention. But at the same time, it's annoying. I'm trying to ignore you on purpose. You're making it hard for me. It's out of my way. Damn it. Oh my goodness. Yeah, but this is it's like intermittent reinforcement. They give you just enough to keep you wondering. But you know the problem about this, you know what I realized? The problem with being involved, but not really being involved, or in other words, let me put this in a more explicit way. You are trying to rebuild yourself and you're not dating, but you still want to feel that intimacy is it's kind of like a false achievement, right? And then what women do is they take advantage of that. They give you enough to act on, right? Just enough to act on, but always maintain plausible deniability, especially the married women. Oh my goodness. I wish the married women's husbands would be more around and just study their body language. They would not act the same. In fact, there's this married woman when her husband comes around, and I mean, if she doesn't act the same, her behavior is completely different. So it's like, oh, so you're just using me. You know what this woman does? This woman, she essentially sees when she sees me, and I give her the look back, right? Because she gets a dope. It's like she feels good in herself, her soul, right? When she sees me looking at her like that, it's just an ego mirror, right? She pretty much sees her younger single self, and it makes her feel good about herself, but at the expense of myself. And when I've experienced things like this, whether it's at work or wherever the case is, or whether it's just in social circles, I get tired of it. I don't want to play that game. To me, it's cruel. To me, it's completely cruel. To me, it's tasteless. You know what I'm saying? Why? At the core, why would I want what I can't have? You know what I'm saying? So yeah, everything about like is withdrawing the supply and regaining my headspace. I don't want to play that game with women. I think that my mission should be so great. My desire for something should be so great. My goal should be so immense that I don't have time for it. You know what I'm saying? It's like you're wasting my time and I don't, I've come to do certain, to a certain place for a certain reason. And it isn't to make you feel good about yourself, right? So I want to keep interactions strict, right? On whether whatever it's about. I just want to stop providing this emotional currency that women crave. Because once that game ends, guess what happens? The power returns, and they draw near to you. You know, it's amazing. the mo- I don't know why it is like this, but it's like a spiritual element to it, to where women just, I don't know, they are attracted to a man who is driven. But man, they honestly, I wouldn't trust women for nothing. I don't have a low opinion of women. But based off what I've seen, not only in my immediate family and the things in this world and my poor experience with women, I hate to say it, but no, I don't trust women for anything. I wouldn't dare trust a woman based off what I've experienced. I love women, and I think that I'll be able to be in a deep emotional relationship with another one, but nah, Like it would take for somebody for me to completely distract me. Like I'm walking down my path, and like, wow, I would have to feel like I'm leaving a pot of gold on the side of the road for me to completely change my mentality. But all the women act the same. They are all doing the same thing. So, anyways, I digress. Let me not get too you know, I got scolded on my last podcast. I had a female friend. She called me and she says, I didn't like that podcast. She said, I forgot what I said, but I said that women were only good for procreation. She heard that and then like, you think I'm only, you know, like she's my friend, right? We ain't like intimate or anything. She said, you think we only good for just pushing out babies? I was like, I didn't mean it like that, but come on now. Oh my goodness. Hey, you said it. Oh my goodness. So when you pull back on playing these artificial games, society will try to make you feel like you are losing or that you're missing out. Isn't that true? But you're not missing out on anything. Anytime I return, I realize that I'm not missing out on anything. There are so many men who are in my same position who are trying to get it together. And if they are going to make me feel like I'm missing out, they're just trying to take advantage. You know what I'm saying? I'm going to dictate my reality by changing my perception of the situation. So, I mean, let's live like bachelors. The ultimate goal is not just to find a partner at any cost. It's not the ultimate goal. But you know, like, let's look at this through the lens of Shakespeare. For example, in Hamlet, there's a brilliant line. It says, "But to my mind, though I am native here." Oh wait, there's a sign going by. Yeah, I stay on Vermont, so this is a very busy street. Sorry, but it says this is a quote from Hamlet, and Shakespeare says, "But to my mind, though I am native here and to the manor born, it is a custom more honored in the breach than the observance." So society expects. Let's just break down this quote. You know, society expects the observance, the frantic rush to be in a relationship, regardless of quality, just to fit the script. But there's a profound integrity in the breach, choosing to stand apart, maintaining your independence and high standards, even when it feels like you're the only one doing so, regardless of how it looks. So, you know, as I read this, I've noticed something also that I did not include in my notes is that we tend to portray ourselves. This image in our mind tends to be formulated not just on what we think of ourselves, but also what we think other people think about us. And that is so poor, right? We have to strip that away. In a sense, you kind of have to not care what people think about you. This is so true. We have to choose solitude over mediocre romance. It's not about, you know, that doesn't result in loneliness, but if we keep our focus on ourselves, it results in intentionality, right? We want to be intentional with our emotions, right? If you allow yourself to be if you're always constantly thinking about how people portray you, then you lose that power of intentionality, right? Um, it's about recognizing that your time and your focus are too valuable to trade for a shallow intimacy. And this is what women offer most of the time for us independent bachelors. Just a shallow intimacy, especially for us who are not ready to date yet. That's all they can offer. Just shallow intimacy. Who wants a shallow intimacy? You know, I want the whole thing. That's like cooking the pie, putting it in front of me, and then taking it out of my face when I grab my fork. Ugh. I don't know. I'm sure there's a better example of that, but you know, I would like to bring up some mastering tools, you know, for ourselves to help self control as young men, right? That lead to silence and emotion, right? Because true attraction, right? True self mastery, they are only born from restraint. We have to restrain ourselves as young men. We must keep our composure. And what is keeping your composure? Keeping your composure is essentially keeping your cool, right? In a high stress situation, maintaining you're in control of your actions regardless of the situation. You know, see, men, they when pressure comes on young men, they either fold or they focus, right? They only do two things, right? Man, there's been many times in my life where I folded, where I didn't want to deal with the pressure, so I just walked away from the challenge. But man, when I focus and don't let them things dictate me, the anxieties of life, and I remain focused, just like how Peter stayed, he kept his eyes on Jesus and from drowning, but then when he looked away, he started to drown. When I focus on Jesus, right? When I focus on the Savior, essentially I stay afloat, right? In the same way, when I focus on my goal, then I stay level. I'm not swayed by the waves of life. So here are some ways. Here are a couple things that we should implement in our life, right? Not just in dating, or not just in social circles or in relation to other people, but also just like in a character sense, in our inherent characters. So first off, the power of silence. Silence. Oh my goodness. Don't you love silence? I love silence. Let's just enjoy it for a second. That was 1 second of silence. You've had enough. Silence is a tool. Silence is a tool that makes others uncomfortable and forces them to reveal themselves. When you're silent, things are revealed, right? Things stand out more. The issue is relevant. Actually, if you take time to respond, actually the best response comes to your mind. So stop rushing to fill every pause with stories or explanations. You should practice controlled silence. Let the other person fill the space because it makes your words instantly more valuable, right? Another one is never explain yourself. Constantly defending your actions signals a need for approval. So you should stand by your choices. You should actually, if you're going to speak, you should speak without trembling or hesitation. If you're going to speak and tell somebody your plans, you should tell them with a dictatorial attitude. Like, no, this is what I'm doing, right? With confidence, because immediately what people do is they try to bring that down. So never explain yourself. Actually, I haven't been explaining myself to anybody, and people tend to understand. These are my plans. I want to accomplish this, yada yada yada. And also, what's also cool about it? It creates like an air of mystery and self possession. You not only feel more in control, but people have confidence that you're in control of your situation. Um, in regards to women, this creates a sense of security. If you're, I mean, if we were dating, or if even if we have female friends and we're in those social circles, it does create an aurora of security. We essentially control. Um, we can, it's amazing. You can explicitly control women's emotions just by your self control. When they find that their emotional instability does not work on you and they cannot manipulate you, a young man, they scale back and they realize, oh, well, I actually have to be self controlled to a degree because my man or this man is, he's very self controlled, um, which helps me control my emotions. Because, women are emotional creatures. So, you have to control the emotional tone, right? Real power isn't about providing constant entertainment or chasing attention. It's about centered and unpredictable, being unpredictable in your emotional response. See, when you're calm, when you're grounded, when you're present amidst someone else's emotional storm, they will naturally seek your certainty, right? It's natural, right? I mean, if you find someone calm in a storm, you kind of like, dude, how you so calm right now? That reminds me when Jesus was sleeping in the boat. It was a huge storm. He was asleep. First off, it's a storm and he's asleep. They go and wake him up like, how could you sleep? I immediately think about, like, if I see Jesus sleep and it's a storm, I'd probably be like, yeah, I guess I could take a nap too. Right? That's how I guess that should be. But the storm, right? How wide was that storm? It was probably terrifying, right? It's probably terrifying. And Jesus just gets up and rebukes the winds. Oh man, I wonder how that scene was. I wonder if he went back to sleep after rebuking the disciples. That would have been funny. But thanks to God. I love God so much. Um, oh yeah, never reveal all your intentions. Revealing everything too soon kills desire. Appear open, but think in secret. Reveal your truths strategically to maintain intrigue. You want to be strategic on how you reveal truth. So I also want to point out that not everybody has this indulgence, or not everybody formulates this construction in life, but I've created personally a closed the loop life, and I've wrote down some notes that have helped me have this closed the loop life because I want to make things easier on myself, and it starts with our mind. So if we control our minds, we control our decision making. Therefore, we can we can control our habits, and therefore remake our character, reshape our character. This is how it goes, but it starts with our thinking. So now let's talk about the foundation of this mastery, your focus and your finances, right? Those two things. The accumulation of general knowledge is essentially useless. Knowledge is power, but unless it's directed toward a specific goal, it's useless. If you are trapped in a recurring loop of stagnation, it is often because you aren't being faithful in the little things. Every decision is a penny. If 100 pennies makes a dollar, then every micro decision you make today builds the character and reality of tomorrow. You are not a victim of your thoughts. Control your mind, and you will control your physical impulses. If you are facing a mountain of debt, for example, while trying to build an investment portfolio, you are building a house on a swamp. A low credit score or active collections are financial ghosts that will tax your future with high interest rates and legal risks. No amounts of patience will turn a modest hourly wage into wealth if your money is leaking out through convenient spending or untracked cash withdrawals or debt payments. We have to know where every penny is going. Every penny. We must write down our expenses, right? We got to cancel these subscriptions that we aren't watching. We got to cancel the gym membership that we aren't going to. Some people, I knew a guy who would only go to the gym when he noticed that he just paid. He would go the first of the month because he realized they took the money out. Oh my goodness. Don't get me started. Anyways, I digress. You don't need to be patient with your low income. If you are low income, that is, right? You don't need to be patient with your income. You need to be aggressive with your upskilling. So if we want to be more resourceful and raise our income, what do we need to do? We need to gain a skill set, right? Oh, excuse me. If we're feeling lonely, which often happens for the independent bachelor, I mean, think about it. We're independent and bachelors, meaning we're not married and have never married. And the only thing that draws us or hence the title of this podcast, the only thing that draws us out of this path is women, right? We feel lonely and we want to experience that. I haven't had sex for the past couple years, and I'm grateful for that because I was committing sexual immorality. I'm not married. I don't want to have sex. I want to have sex with my wife. And it made me realize that's an intimacy that I want to have, that I want to gain. But in the meantime, I have to be willing to feel lonely at times. But I asked myself, wait a minute, why do I feel lonely at times? And you know what it is? Loneliness is just a symptom of boredom and a lack of a clear mission. That's all. That's all loneliness is. When I'm busy, when I'm focused on a clear goal, oh my goodness, I'm not thinking about anybody or anything. I'm focused on my goal. Again, I'm going to repeat that one more time for us. Loneliness is often just a symptom of boredom and a lack of a clear mission. When you are aggressively pursuing a target, you don't have time to feel isolated. When you are far successful, when you are far too successful, you don't care about feeling awkward. You know. So this is what a closed loop life feels. For example, this is my closed loop life. For example, labor funds capital. First off, number one, my day job funds my tight, focused assets, which I'm investing in inflation hedges, dividend-paying equities, and physical commodities like silver. Two, capital funds my time. My growing assets yield eventually reach a threshold where it covers my basic survival needs, and therefore I buy my life back by having more time. And therefore, time creates a high value assets, right? Therefore, I can use more time to create more, to purchase more assets. I use that free time to refine my skills, acquire specialized credentials, and create intellectual property. So first, I use my day job to focus on assets. These assets eventually buy me time. I use that time to create more assets or hone in my skills, which therefore allows me to purchase more assets. Right. So this is the goal. What's crazy is being rich is actually quite simple. Um, get out of pay off bad debt that's making you poor, keeping you in a poor loop, in a poor you're paying a poor premium by being in bad debt, such as credit cards and loans, high interest loans. Pay those off. Um, save a portion of your income and invest it. That's all. That's the only difference. See, the poor people, they're constantly paying expenses, and what they do with the rest of their income is discretionary. They either spend it on food or on luxury goods or items. In other words, they don't invest it. They burn their entire paycheck away. The best thing I ever did late, or at least recently, is write down my expenses, and it's amazing. I'm going into 35 minutes now into this podcast. I want to end it here, but I just want to leave you all with a few things. First off, this should be something that we all should be doing. Like I mentioned, we want to be tactical for our next phase so that we don't, I mean, as independent bachelors, we don't want to feel lonely. So this is part of the goal. We have to do essentially five things. We have to build, number one, build the buffer. Stop all unnecessary convenience spending and establish a baseline emergency fund so your brain can exit survival mode, right? We got to get out that poor poverty premium. We're paying this poverty premium. We got to get out that mindset. Two, we have to clear the threats. Attack active revolving debts. Lower our utilization to zero. Aggressively negotiate old collections. If we have debt in collections, negotiate those collections for a fraction of what they owe. You know, you could pay whatever's in collections for 30% to half of the original amount owed. Get those off your credit so you can raise your credit score and therefore be able to, you know, borrow at a much cheaper rate, right? There's many things that we could borrow for in the future. You know, you could borrow for a business, right? Something amazing. You know, something you could, just an idea, but that only comes with having an income and credit, right? I used to sleep on credit. Very naive. Very naive. Thirdly, execute the arbitrage. We should lower our housing by half. You know, like, you know, if we're paying it, of course, shelter is the biggest expense, but if you're paying too much, you know, let me not just single out shelter because it could be different for everybody else, but it's mostly the same for me. But whatever you're paying the most in, whatever is your biggest expense, cut that joke in half by any means possible. Do what you got to do. Like if you're paying a lot in housing, get a roommate. Downsize for a year or something. Just get that. Use that extra money to clear a path for yourself. We have to remove our pride, whatever the case is. But do what we got to do to lower our expenses. I'm not trying to pay these high expenses. To be honest with you, I only make so much. You know. Fourth, upgrade human capital, right? This is pivotal. We have to be specialized. We have to pivot into specialized, higher paying roles through affordable, flat rate online programs, online certificates, or go to a school or get a degree. You know, do something because rather than just taking on more student debt. You know, we have to do something, right, to make us credible, right? Because think about it, the wage. If you think about it, sir, you're getting labor is a price in the market. You're getting paid your value. Yes, you're getting whatever is your price right now. I hate to say it. I don't know how long you've been at that job, but they're paying you how much you're worth. It is the crucial fact. Yeah, they're paying you what you're worth. It is a fact. Yeah, you have to make yourself more valuable. Like, there's some people who get paid hundreds of thousands of dollars just for consultation for an hour. Why? Because their time is valuable. People will pay that much just to sit down with them. Man, I saw a lunch with Warren Buffett. It cost $1 million to have lunch with with Warren Buffett for an hour. That's how much his time is worth. I wouldn't dare pay for that, but hey, I mean that's you get what I'm saying? Like that's how valuable that man's time is, right? And lastly, number five, build with your hands. Instead of financing an expensive lifestyle on credit, we should use practical skills to thrift, custom build, or create what we need. You know, um, like for example, buy a reliable vehicle in cash to completely bypass predatory interest rates. You know what I'm saying? So think outside the box. We shouldn't just be going the normal route. Again, that's why I mentioned that quote from Hamlet from Shakespeare. Again, but to my mind, though I am native here, and to the manner born, it is a custom more honored in the breach than the observance. Though we observe, you know, naturally how people do, they take on bad debt. You know, they just work at a job. You know, that's the conventional route. We don't have to do that. So the bottom line is men are in the same boat as me. It is quite beautiful. You know, I wish y'all nothing but the best, and I just want to let y'all know that you are a king. You are not a slave, right? Don't do not relinquish your God-given power to change your situation. And you know, above all, you know, I gotta end on this note. Pray to God. Pray to God. You know, we're in the spiritual world, and we're spiritual beings in a dirt body. I mean, it's kind of silly to be feeding yourself with the artificial when your soul is just craving, dying for some water of life. You heard me. God bless you. Bye bye.